Hi, my name is Pastor Hal York, and welcome to Truth in the Trenches. Proverbs chapter 30 is a chapter that gives us a series of different groups of people and some corresponding lists that go along with them. And the first one is verses 11 to 14. Let me just read that. There's a kind of man who curses his father and does not bless his mother. There's a kind who is pure in his own eyes, yet is not washed from his filthiness. There is a kind, oh, how lofty are his eyes, and his eyelids are raised in arrogance. There is a kind of man whose teeth are like swords, and his jaw teeth like knives, to devour the afflicted from the earth, and the needy from among men. Now, the word kind there can be also translated there as a generation. And there have always been people like this in the world, obviously, but are we not seeing a generation of people today, not without exception, but a generation of people who would excuse these attitudes and literally call them virtues? Proverbs 30:11, there's a kind of man who curses his father and does not bless his mother. Proverbs 20:20 says, if one curses his father or his mother, his lamp will be put out in utter darkness. And yet we see this over and over again in our culture, the utter disrespect and contempt that man has for the family, that man has for even parents. Verse 12 says, there is a generation who is pure in their own eyes, yet is not washed from their filthiness. The self-righteous, pure in our own eyes, yet filthy. Proverbs 29 says, who can say, I have made my heart pure, I am clean from my sin? Well, this guy can, and he does. Yet he is blind to his own filthiness. He's self-deceived. Proverbs 16:2 says, all the ways of man are pure in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the spirit. And 12:15 says, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. Chapter 13 goes on for another group. There is a generation, oh, how lofty are his eyes, and his eyelids are raised in arrogance. He looks down on everyone in his pride. Proverbs 16:5, everyone who is arrogant in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Be assured he will not go unpunished. Psalm 101 verse 5, whoever has a haughty look and an arrogant heart, I will not endure. Proverbs 8:13, the fear of the Lord is hatred of evil, pride and arrogance in the way of evil and perverted speech I hate. In Luke 16:15, Jesus said to them, you are those who would justify yourselves before men, but God knows your hearts. For what is exalted among men is an abomination in the sight of God. And then verse 14 says, there is a kind of man or a generation whose teeth are like swords, and his jaw teeth like knives, to devour the afflicted from the earth and the needy from among men. We see this violence, but what is it demonstrated towards? There's no natural empathy. There's no, not to help, but to devour the afflicted from the earth, to the needy from among men, to get rid of the afflicted and the needy. There's just this heartlessness in this generation. Does this sound familiar? You read the newspapers and you're going to see this on almost every page, it seems like these days. Listen to what Paul told Timothy in 2 Timothy 3:1, familiar verses. But understand this, in the last days there will come times of difficulty. What do these difficulties look like? Well, listen to what I read compared to what we just read in Proverbs. People will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness but denying its power. Avoid such people. You can't help but see those things clearly in those verses, what it's going to be like in the last days. Proverbs 6 says, there are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to him. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil, a false witness who breathes out lies, and one who sows discord among the brethren. This generation described in verses 11 to 14, we find 4 of the 6 things that God hates in that generation. But let me close with this. I realize this is rather negative, but don't lose heart. Let me end with some encouragement for believers. Listen to the Psalmist in Psalm 57, 4-11. He says, my soul is in the midst of lions. I lie down amid fiery beasts. The children of man whose teeth are spears and arrows, whose tongues are sharp arrows. And what's his response to all this? Verse 5. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be over all the earth. They set a net for my steps. My soul was bowed down. They dug a pit in my way, but they have fallen into it themselves. Selah. My heart is steadfast, O God, my heart is steadfast. I will sing and make melody. Awake, my glory, awake, O harp and lyre. I will awake the dawn. I will give thanks to you, O Lord, among the peoples. I will sing praises to you among the nations. For your steadfast love is great to the heavens, your faithfulness to the clouds. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be over all the earth. My heart is steadfast, O God. My heart is steadfast. I will sing and make melody. May that be the truth today, the reality today as we look around our world. May our focus in our heart be looking upward for the glorious appearing of our great God and Savior, Jesus Christ, that he might be exalted, and he will be exalted above the heavens. His glory will be over all the earth one day. And may our heart be steadfast as we wait and as we serve and as we live for his glory and the good of others. May this truth guide us and guard us today in the trenches of life. God bless.